What's up again, everyone? How's it going today? It's a beautiful day, as I always say when it's a beautiful day. Uh, it's in the evening on a Monday. We're doing a little bit of housework, cleaning up around here, fixing up my roof in the back. We have this porch that has old corrugated roof that's like 25, 30 years old, and it's fiberglass and just horrible, so blows off all the time. So I decided to replace it, and during the day I've been, just thinking about people. Being, I always have these thoughts on my mind when I'm doing things, working, as most people probably do. And I was gonna make a long video here, come out and do detailed video, but it's too hot, and I've got other things. I'm distracted. I picked up my guitar for the first time in a while, so I've been playing a little music, and whatever. The point being that I just wanted to stop and make a video just to kind of cover what I'm thinking at the moment, because if I don't, then I never will. And I've got these books, a stack of books here that I was just flipping through and trying to figure out which one to continue on next. And I've realized how much interest I have in why people are the way they are. And so the question I guess I'm asking is, does it even matter? I mean, understanding each other is important, but to what end? And when has it actually helped anything? When has it actually resolved our differences to say, well, you and I have different viewpoints because of the way that we're programmed, and because of our upbringing and our genetics and the way our brains work, and the frontal cortex does this, and your serotonin, your dopamine, it just, nobody gives a shit. People feel the way they feel, and they don't really want to look at the details of why. Because of this, I've kind of given up on trying to find a chemical, scientific, or environmental reason why people are the way they are, for the sake of trying to help people change that. Because it seems pointless. People who are frustrated and angry all the time, they can learn to control their emotions, but just hearing a random YouTube video of some person saying, hey man, don't stress, dude, it's all good, it's not going to do anything. And a person who says, oh, don't get angry, it's not going to do anything. Many of these issues and the way we are is, has many factors. It's very complicated. Let's put it this way. This is the book I'm reading right now. My wife actually picked it up. It's called Behave by Robert Sapolsky. And it's, let's see, a masterly cross-disciplinary scientific study of human behavior. What's in our glands, our genes, our childhoods, explains our species' capacity for both altruism and brutality. This comprehensive and friendly survey of a big sprawling mess of a subject is leavened by impressive data to silly joke ratio. It has my vote for Science Book of the Year. It goes on to talk about xenophobia and our lack of understanding of other people. And this is the one actually my wife just finished. It's called The Coddling of the American Mind. And it's got all these college students falling off the cliff, because pretty much that's where we're at right now. And it's called How Good Intentions and Bad Ideas Are Setting Up a Generation for Failure. And both of these books are just wonderful. I haven't read them both. I'm working on this one, Behave, now. But this is another one that I'm partway through. 6 Impossible Things Before Breakfast. The Evolutionary Origins of Belief. And then Enduring Philosophy, and a whole stack of other books. So the point here is that I could sit and read every one of these fucking books and get nothing that will benefit me in trying to... It may help me understand why people act the way they act, but is it going to help me improve my life or those around me? And that's really what I'm after. Because we can learn how to tolerate and understand other people. I had somebody mention this earlier about tolerance, and I said, tolerance is a word that I used to use, but I'm trying to remove it from my lexicon. Because tolerance means that you put up with something that you know is complete bullshit, and you're willing to just overlook it because you don't want to deal with it. That's kind of the definition in the sense. Tolerance is different from acceptance. I can accept that people are different, but I don't have to tolerate it. So if somebody says something that's bullshit, tolerance would be to just ignore it. I'm the kind of guy who calls shit when I see it. I call bullshit when I see it, and I don't really... it works for me. I have no reason not to. If somebody says something I disagree with, I'm going to vocalize how I feel. Because if they're going to impose what they believe on me, then I'm going to impose my disbelief on them. And often there's this attitude in society that oh man, you gotta just accept how, that's their belief, that's their freedom. Sure, keep it to your fucking self. That's how I feel. If a person's going to come on to me with their religion and try to explain to me how they're right, instead of just tolerance would be just to say, oh yeah, okay, and just egg them on. Acceptance would be to say, I'm glad you have something you believe in, that you understand, that works for you, but I disagree, and this is why. We've come to a point in society where discourse is almost impossible regarding anything, whether it's politics, religion, family, how to raise your children. All these parents who coddle their kids and don't let them go out and get their fucking arms smashed, or fall on the pavement and scrape themselves up. This is the reality of life. We're going to get hurt. We're going to have problems. So a whole generation tried to raise kids that didn't have to suffer the same pains we did, and then found out that they didn't have enough of the kick in the ass to learn to survive, if you will. I always picture the mother bird pushing the baby out of the nest. It's something that recurs every time I think about people toughening up or thickening their skin. That's what I picture. Push the bird out of the nest. It's not going to harm the bird. It's not going to harm the generation. It's going to say, hey, it's time for you to move on and do your thing. The bird knows when it's time. Why and how, and whether it's genetic or if they're consciously aware, it doesn't really matter. The fact is, that's how we operate. That people get to a certain point and it's time to think for yourself. And it seems like a lot of people are willing to think that you don't have to have any real understanding of the world even when you're 30 or 40 or 50. And so people go on completely ignorant of those around them and why people think the way they do. So because of that, I try to read books, or I try to read articles, or studies, or anything that comes out regarding people and understanding people. But does it matter? Is it really helping? Is it helping me? Perhaps. But it's only helping me to understand people better, so I don't have to put up with bullshit. So I don't have to listen to the drivel and nonsense that wastes my time in life. I've worked for my consciousness, if you will. And I've earned, through my studies, I guess the mindset that I have, whether that's good or bad, it doesn't matter. The point is that we all work towards goals that we think are important. And some people work towards nothing but financial goals, and they have no mental goals whatsoever to understand themselves or the world. And so then they become neurotic, or kind of lose touch with people. And ultimately, people are the most important thing to me. I mean, the people we interact with. As much as I get frustrated sometimes hanging around too many people, or I need my time alone, I need to go out and just sit and kind of unwind. Without people, I'd be miserable, because I like to share my ideas, I like to share my thoughts, and I like to hear other people's thoughts. So it's not just a matter of research or reading stacks of books to try to understand the world. It's a matter of interacting with people one-on-one. And I'll tell you, in the 8 or 9 years that I've been posting YouTube videos, I have had so many personal conversations back and forth, or just comments in general. I've been able to look at my analytics on my channel. It'll tell me exactly what types of videos get views, what types of videos don't, which ones get the most hate, and I can notice little things. If I mention one thing in a video, even if it's a positive video, let's say you throw in a word like Trump or religion, and then you get a bunch of people who are voting it down because they're upset because you talk bad about their hero Trump, and fuck Trump. I can't understand this whole cult of personality surrounding people. It's just a figurehead, a number, a person, but people are so obsessed with finding this hero, this hero that's going to save the day, this father figure, if you will, and that's so people get offended by things. If you have an opinion against someone and you don't like a person for their ideas, or you don't like whatever it might be, there will always be somebody who has a major gripe with that. Not because of anything you said in particular, even if it's completely true. I could sit out and lay all the bad things that any president of the past has done, or any military leader has done, and there will always be somebody who wants to say, but look at all the great things they did. And that's where we are as humans. We're trying to point out I guess, point out the things that support our viewpoint. And so, since I don't have a real viewpoint, I don't give a shit, and I'm not really tied up in it, then I'm able to look at it neutrally as much as possible. And but I still have my opinions. It's like somebody said, it's like the old saying: if you don't fall for something, or if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And like somebody left a comment on a video the other day I made where they said, there's no middle ground. You have to kind of stand to one side or the other, or else you're ignoring the problems. I disagree, because I see the problems in society as self-created problems. Besides the fact that we're polluting our environment, the things that I can see directly, oil in the waterways and pollution in the air, as far as people's personal opinions or ideas or belief systems, it really doesn't fucking matter. I don't care. I'm not tied up in it. I have too much to live in my own life. I see the damage religion does. This morning I was going to do a video about Judaism and talk about Israel, and I just decided against it, because I'm like, people are so fucking sensitive, they can't even handle the topic without saying, oh, fuck those Jews, or other people saying, how dare you talk bad about Jews. You can't even talk bad about Israel without being anti-Semitic now. And these are the things, these subjects that I really analyze carefully and look more into them, look into the history, the reason why people feel the way they do. And it's funny, because I respect Judaism, but I don't respect Israel. So it's one of those things where you can't really just say that without explaining the full depth of why you feel the way you feel. So it's subjects like that, or like politics. I can't even bring up, the current government without somebody getting butthurt about, oh, you're talking bad about Trump. It's like, I'm sorry that I feel the way I feel, but let's just put it this way. Perhaps Trump is the best person to get the job done because of the way that politics operates. But he's still a shitty human being, and I don't respect him at all whatsoever. I do not respect Donald Trump, even the slightest. But I'm not going to deny the fact that maybe it's the best option for a position where it's just a bunch of, the same old, the same old white men and trying to run the system, and now it's just a different old white man, and people are hoping that it'll do something different. So I hate to bring up politics or bring up Trump, but I wanted to bring it up as the extreme example of how I can't even talk about certain things, not because I'm afraid to, but because nothing gets resolved. People are so stuck in the way that they think that they're unwilling to even look past their own bullshit delusions about how things operate. How many of us have ever really, been to the White House, or been to the Pentagon, or been to any of these places where things happen, or sat in a war room where they're planning, what method we should have to retaliate or a preemptive strike? We as Americans, all we can do is point the finger and say, oh, they're doing things wrong. And so it's best to just walk away from that sometimes, the whole political spectrum. Because to tell you the truth, I really don't care much anymore, and I'm losing complete faith in giving a shit about this country, where it's headed, the future of mankind. These are things that I've always been concerned about. But I'm really starting to not give a shit again. And I say again because there was a time when I cared nothing about these things. And then I thought, as a responsible citizen, it's my duty to read books like this, to understand philosophy, to understand people, to understand why people think the way they do. And then I started asking myself, for what? For what reason? What am I gaining from this? And what are others gaining from it? If the individuals aren't willing to do the work on themselves, then no amount of understanding them is going to help. So, it's easier to just walk away from it all sometimes, and that's how I feel anyway. I think that the whole political spectrum is complete bullshit. I think it's a joke what humans have done to our environment, to each other. We're kind of a failed species, if you will, but I'd like to think differently. I'm on the fence about this, and I'm not just saying that I feel any one way or the other. And that's one of the hardest things, like in this book, To Behave, at the very beginning, it talks about violence, the first, kind of the preface. And it's talking about how even though the author really despises violence and doesn't like it, you can't help but enjoy it when somebody who has wronged others gets what they deserve. The idea that, no, I don't support the death penalty, but if someone does this, then they should die, kind of attitude. And how it's not so simple. The gray area is much larger than we realize. Things aren't as black and white as we'd like them to be. And this is why we have created religion. This is the reason why religion has proliferated for so long, is because it gives people a guidebook to say, well, if I don't know what to do here, rather than think for myself, I'll open my book. And if that works for you, I say, go for it. But my point being that if we have to look for a book of obscure answers to understand how to behave in basic ways, then I think that we might want to just kind of look in our hearts a little deeper. But those are my thoughts. I mean, what else can I say? I'm not here to belittle or berate religion or politics or Trump supporters. None of that matters to me. I don't give a shit. I just feel like certain subjects should be able to be talked about without everybody getting butthurt about it. And that leads me to believe that we've become way too sensitive of a society. People need to get slapped around a little more, perhaps. I mean, if humans are weak, then they're going to get tread on. It's the way it's always been. And if we're too tough, then we don't know how to have empathy and sympathy. But there is a place in the middle where you can reach out and punch somebody in the nose if they get in your personal space or try to harm you. But you can also hold somebody's hand when they're desperate and in need of a friend. That's emotional intelligence, and we all deserve a little more of it. We all owe it to ourselves to teach ourselves. I don't have the answers. Sure as hell don't. I talk a lot of bullshit. I ramble, talk about what thoughts are on my mind. Sometimes they're incoherent. Sometimes they make sense. It doesn't really matter. I'm just a guy here talking. You in your own life, you have to live your own life the way that you live it. And so my hope is that I can at least give a little bit of insight out of things I've discovered, the mistakes making bacon, and maybe ease the pain of others who are kind of fighting against this ambivalence between, well, I feel angry about this, but I'm not supposed to be angry, or I feel like God is greater than this, but my religion tells me different, or God, I believe in some of these values on the left or the right, but my position on the left or the right doesn't allow me to respect those viewpoints. The solution is to become an individual. We have to eliminate groupthink and stop following other people's opinions. Turn off the news, turn off the media. Ask yourself if anything you've heard on the news in the last 10 years has benefited your daily life. Walking away from the propaganda, walking away from the news can give you a much better insight on what's going on without somebody else's opinion trying to tell you what's right and wrong. And the funny thing is, when I have an opinion strongly about something, I've had several people accuse me of, "Man, you watch too much CNN." I'm like, I don't watch CNN ever. I don't watch any mainstream media. But if you're watching alternative media and thinking they're giving you all the straight answers, then you're fucking deluded, my friend. You're fucking deluded. These are individual people trying to make their money just like everyone else. People who are giving you the news are doing it for the sake of profit. And so if the news isn't exciting enough, they'll make it exciting. So it's just important that we're aware and that we let go of some of the things that just don't matter. So that's my ramble for the day. I better get back to work. I'll talk to y'all later. Be well, my friends. Thanks for coming to Carlos channel, yo. Yeah.